Hey, what up, guys? Coming to you from my room, one of the rare occasions I'm coming to you from home. Doing my what's next on former world title challenger Josesito Lopez. Gonna get right into it. Lopez last fought in September on the Errol Spence Sean Porter undercard when he took on John Molina Jr. and scored an impressive ninth round TKO win. He was coming off that majority decision loss to Keith Thurman, where he challenged for the title back in January and came up just short in a really good fight, a fight he almost stopped Thurman in. So Lopez ended up having a good 2019. Since then, haven't heard nothing concrete on what he's doing next. So now the big question, what's next for Josesito Lopez? We jump right into the top 10, taking a look at the options there. Start with number one, undefeated Errol Spence Jr., the unified champion. I think depending on when Spence comes back, I think that he could be an option, but Spence, I think, is going to have to make one of his mandatory defenses, either for the IBF, more likely for the WBC. But the thing is, Sean Porter's is number one. So will the WBC, they've been real lenient, especially their bigger name champions, on allowing these guys to fight whoever they want. He's coming back from, that bad car accident he had last year. So I think Lopez could be a possible option for him. Just got to wait and see. But maybe, but I'm leaning towards the less likely because Spence wants bigger names and bigger fights. But out the gate, he might just want to take a tune-up and because it could be a year and some change by the time he returns, and maybe Lopez is the perfect guy for that. Number two, or tied for first, is undefeated WBO champion Terrence Crawford. I wouldn't completely roll it out, but Crawford wants bigger names, more believable names that could possibly test him. Lopez right now wouldn't be considered that. Even though he's coming off a good performance against Keith Thurman last year, he wouldn't be considered a guy that could test Crawford, so I don't see this fight happening next. Number three, the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao just wants bigger names in this. He's not going to consider a guy like Lopez. Lopez doesn't deserve it, so no. Number four, a rematch with former unified champion Keith Thurman. I wouldn't completely rule it out. Thurman hasn't mentioned it, but I think he does want to come back and take more of kind of a step-up fight. A preamble to a step-up fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted to clear the air with Lopez, but I think he's more likely to stay away from this. But I wouldn't be surprised if he took it, and I'd love to see the fight. Number five is former champ Sean Porter. Here's a fight I think is a real possibility if Porter gets asked out like he normally does. Porter usually gets asked out because of his style, and most people don't want to fight him. So I really wouldn't be surprised if he fought a guy like Lopez who's trying to get in the mix. Porter's a top five guy. I could really see this fight happening. And Porter's ranked in the WBC with Lopez, so it kind of makes sense. It could be considered an eliminator, maybe a final eliminator. Number six is Danny Garcia. Another fight. I wouldn't completely rule it out if Danny gets asked out in the subject of the big name fights. I know Pacquiao is considering him, but he's leaning towards Mikey Garcia. I know Errol Spence is considering him. He's leaning towards Pacquiao or Danny are the one of the two that Errol Spence wants to fight. But if Danny if he gets asked out in that conversation, I could see him staying busy fighting once this year and taking on Lopez maybe. So we'll see. Number seven is Yordenis Ugas. Now Ugas is number one in the WBA. It's not, in my opinion, I don't think Lopez really stands a chance against Ugas because of Ugas' style, but Lopez, if he gets desperate, I could see it happening. They're both PBC guys. It could happen. I'm going to lean towards the less likely, though, because I don't think Lopez really wants to go in against a guy like him. Number eight is Mikey Garcia, former four-division world champion. Mikey's going to get a big fight next, most likely. I mean, he's coming off that big win over Jesse Vargas. I don't think he really wants to face a level fighter like Lopez yet. Make that decision. That's probably a desperate type of decision because he wants a big fight. So it's probably going to be, I'm leaning towards he's probably going to fight Pacquiao. If he doesn't get the Pacquiao fight and Spence doesn't fight Danny Garcia, I think there's a good chance Mikey Garcia fights Danny Garcia. So I really think he's going to go after something big next. I don't think he's going to go after a guy like Lopez on his level. Number nine is Sergey Lipinets. Lipinets is fighting for the interim title for the IBF. And then wants to go straight for a world title after that, so I don't see Lopez and him locking horns. Now for the guys that are tied for 10th with Lopez, we got Jesse Vargas, which would be a rematch from a fight years ago at 140. I don't see this. Vargas doesn't fight for the WBC. I think Lopez wants to go out there other things, and I think Vargas is probably moving back up to 154. And then finally, also tied for 10th, is Thomas Delorme, former world title challenger. I don't see a Delorme fight happening. Delorme looks like he's matching up against Jamal James next, but that's not 100%. But it could happen. They're both PBC guys, so it could happen. I wouldn't be surprised. And that's it for the top 10 for Josesito Lopez. What do I think he's going to do next? I think he's going to wait around to see how all the pieces fall in place, because he's a PBC guy and he wants to get big fights. After that, I think, he could face any one of the guys that are left over. Like I said, there's probably going to be one or two big names that don't have a fight, and Lopez is a prime type fighter to face one of those guys. So whether it be, he's not going to get Spencer Pacquiao, in my opinion, or Crawford. The top three are out for Lopez, but the guys that don't get those fights, that want those fights, the Danny Garcia, the Sean Porters, the Keith Thurmans, and the Mikey Garcias, he needs to be there waiting as one of the guys they could possibly fight. So that's what I think he does. If not, he'll probably face one of the many lower level guys that that have decent names, that are in the PBC right now, and we just got to see what happens. But that's the what's next for former world title challenger Josesito Lopez. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.